Alright everybody, welcome back to another episode of Crazy Tech Reviews, and in today's episode, we're going to be starting part 3 of the Macintosh, Plus restoration project. Now in the last episode, we received, the boot disk for the machine, and the new, mouse, the 9-pin connector, of course. This cable is really flimsy too, so that's weird. As well as removing some rust from the main board of the machine, or from the chassis of the machine, and doing just an overall cleanup. So we got a lot done in the last episode. Also, if you haven't checked out the last 2 parts of this episode, I would suggest you do to get caught up with everything. And in today's episode, I'm currently waiting on the disk drive to show up so that we can finally finish off this computer. And so hopefully that'll show up soon, and we'll be able to replace that, and we should be able to boot the system right up from there. As we have a disk now and a mouse and everything else. And yeah, so anyway, with that said, also you might have noticed I had a new intro. I published that as a standalone video, so that people could see the new intro a few days ago, from the time this video was published. As of the time this video was published, I just published that video today, but anyway, yeah. That said, get to work on this machine. Since the floppy drive wasn't supposed to arrive until Tuesday next week, I decided I would start to work on a few more restoration things that I need to do with the keyboard that I didn't get done in the last episode. As you'll notice though, first of all, one thing is the cable is really dirty for this keyboard, so that's gonna have to be fixed. And I'm also going to go ahead and pull off all the keycaps so that I can clean underneath the keyboard keycaps, because this is where probably most of the dust in the entire board will accumulate. I just simply pull these keycaps off just by simply resting a screwdriver and lightly prying it. You don't want to pry too hard, because if you do, you might actually break the keycap, which did happen on one of my keycaps. It wasn't caused by me or anything, but when I received the machine, one of the key stalks underneath the key was actually broken. So anyway, I just continued to remove keycap after keycap until finally I got all the keycaps off. Now the main reason I'm going through all this trouble of removing all these is because I simply needed to clean both underneath the keyboard, and I needed to clean out the keycaps themselves. So it was definitely a worthwhile time, I guess, spent taking these out, because underneath the keyboard was just disgusting. So yeah, and then I began to disassemble the actual keyboard itself. This way I could get better access to both the PCB on the keyboard mechanism and the keyboard mechanism itself, which I would need to clean later. The keyboard comes apart very easily with 6 screws, as I showed in part 2 as well. And then after that, the keyboard itself should just lift out, and you can move the housing right out of the way just like that. Also, I think now that I can, I probably am going to spray out this outside, because there's caked on rust and stuff in here, and it's really gross. Now, while I was pulling out the keycaps, I managed to dislodge one of the switches, so I ended up having to super glue it back together. Keep in mind, I didn't put any glue in the actual mechanism, I just on the clips that were originally holding it, and then I wiped it off with some rubbing alcohol, which my arm was blocking in this clip, so that's kind of annoying. Okay, so once I had the keyboard disassembled, I flipped it over and began to check the switches to make sure they were working. Essentially how I did this was I just put my meter onto continuity mode, which is not the one I typically use, but it still works, so yeah. And then I went ahead and found the solder joints where switches were connecting, and I found the switch that connected that, and essentially what I'm going to do is just put the positive and negative terminals of my meter onto the switch so that I can check to make sure that I get a beep when the switch is pushed down. Because otherwise, if I don't, then that means that the switch is likely not closing the circuit, which is not good. And from my very scientific testing, I've concluded that there are 2 keys on this board that don't work. However, we'll have to actually plug it into the Macintosh to be sure that those are broken or not. Next up, I went ahead and put all the keys in a bowl so that I could rinse them out over the sink and let them soak. Basically what I did was I just filled this bowl up with some water, And then after making sure that all the keys were thoroughly coated in the water, some might have sticked out a little bit, but that's no big deal. I kind of shook them up every 20 minutes or so. But anyway, I went ahead and put some soap in there just to clean them better, hopefully. And then I let them sit on the counter. Alright, so as you can see, I put the keys in some dish soap water, sort of, or soapy water. I just used dish soap and water. Or dish soap, not dish soap. Goodness me. And essentially, I'm going to let them kind of sit in here and just soak for a bit. Hopefully that will loosen some of the dust and grime that's been built up on these things. And now my hands are completely covered in dish soap. So, anyway, we'll come back to this in about 20 minutes, maybe. But we have some other things to do while this cleans, so yeah. Alright, so now I'll go ahead and take out the housing of the keyboard to rinse down with the hose. Basically what I do is I just put the hose up really close to the plastic so that the pressure of the water dislodges some of the stuck-on dirt. Now, this probably won't remove the caked-on rust I was talking about earlier, but it should definitely do a lot to clean up the dust and dirt and stuff that gets caked on this thing over the years. And I don't know why it's so foamy, though, as well. Okay, so here is the front piece, or top piece of the keyboard, and honestly, this didn't really remove as much crap as I wanted it to. There's still some stuff in here, but honestly, I do have to say it looks a ton better. However, I've noticed also that the screws have been leaving a lot of rust. That was unplanned. The screws have been leaving a lot of rust and stuff in here, so I'll probably have to treat those with vinegar, which is what you typically use to remove rust. As far as the bottom case piece goes, first of all, I'm gonna have to replace these feet because it's sticking to the patio out here. But this one also looks a little bit better, maybe at best, but there's still grime around the edges, which I wasn't expecting to remove anyway. But if the water did do anything, it did loosen a lot of the grime. But honestly, I think this is enough for now. So I guess we'll go ahead and go back in. And then after that, I'll bring it in and go ahead and wipe off some of the water that I can remove with the towel. And then after that, I'm just going to let it sit on the counter here and air dry for probably a few hours, if not more, depending on if I have stuff to do or not. Alright, so I just took these out of the water because it's been an entire day. I didn't mean to put these in for any more than 20 minutes, but right now I'm just letting them air dry on my cloth here, so yeah, I'm probably going to put them all to where they're bottom side up, since that's where all the water is being held in. But other than that, these definitely got all the dust and grime taken off of them, so that's good. And there doesn't appear to be any scuffs on either of these, or any of these keys either, so that's also good. Alright, so some good news, and that's that it turns out that this drive is actually supposed to come a day earlier than planned. It's supposed to come Monday now, which happens to be today, and it's supposed to come within the next 15 minutes, hopefully, or else USPS's estimation is probably wrong. It said anywhere between 11:30 to 12:30, so I'll have to be looking out for that, I guess, because yeah, that's kind of good. So now I don't have to wait till tomorrow to finally put a new disk drive in my Macintosh. Oh goodness, I'm falling into the wall. But yeah, as you all know, last night I did do a lot of work on the keyboard. I got the keys finished, and I cleaned off the case pieces during the daytime, but yeah, they're definitely a lot cleaner. So hopefully that will come soon. And come soon it did. It came basically like almost right after I filmed that clip, which is really nice. So I went ahead and got that out of the mail, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Alright, so I will begin to unpack the floppy drive. Now, this was packed very well, which is good, so good job there with the packaging. Anyway, basically, I'll just cut through all the packaging and extract the drive from its cocoon of packaging. Essentially, what I bought here is just a standard 800K 1MB floppy drive. This is a high-density drive, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, we'll just continue to unwrap the drive from the bubble wrap, and we'll go ahead and pull it out. Just like that. And with that unboxed, I anxiously disassembled the computer itself to remove the floppy drive chassis. Basically, I'm just going to go ahead and quickly swap out the old drive for the new drive that I just received, and hope to God that it actually works. As you can see, this is just a time lapse of me doing so. Nothing really that interesting here, and we'll go ahead and slide the back case piece back on. And then with the machine, well, we'll put the 4 screws in. And then with the machine assembled, we'll plug it in and turn on the switch. And then we'll go ahead and plug in the mouse and insert the disc. And sure enough, it seemed to work. And as you can see here, as I go to the about the Finder menu, it appears to be running System 6.0.8, which I am aware of because that's the version I purchased from the website. So everything seems to be good here. So I'll continue to clean off the dirty trackball that I meant to clean earlier, but I'll go ahead and clean that now. Also, I figured I'd go ahead and show you just how messed up my old drive was. For one, as you'll notice, it kind of crunches the disc down in there like that. Whereas I put the disc in the new one, it just kind of nicely pops into the drive, if you know what I mean. Not only this, but when you put a disc into the old drive, the head kind of bobbles up and down like it's really loose, whereas in the new drive it lies flat on the disc. Also, the head is bent down in the old one, so I think it's a good idea we replaced it. However, the only problem is shortly after, like 30 minutes after the machine last worked, somehow I tried to start it back up again, and it wouldn't boot. It would just show the Happy Mac, and it would just eject the disc. Now, I did have footage I took of it, but the footage turned out really bad, so I didn't put it in the video. But basically, I would insert the disc, it wouldn't read, it would just show a Happy Mac, and it would just eject the disc immediately, like maybe 5 seconds after, so, well, not immediately then. But I'm not sure what the cause of it is, so yeah. I do not think it's the drive, though, but I don't know. Alright, so it's been about 2 days since I last filmed my previous clip in this video, mainly because I've had so much editing to do with this one, because I'm using a new editor, and so I'm doing more effects and stuff throughout the video if you haven't noticed. But anyway, I got in contact with both the guy who sells the floppy disks here and the drive, and just asking what it could possibly have gone wrong. Both have great service. I really appreciate it. I have several theories, but it turns out that the guy who makes the boot discs is actually going to refund me, and then since I ordered a new one, and so basically this is free, I guess. But yeah, that was very awesome. Appreciated. But anyway, with that said, and out of the way, also, these things are very old, so that's why they're failing, and it's not like, well, I mean, I guess I just got unlucky and got a faulty disc. I mean, stuff like this happens sometimes, and unfortunately, it just happened to be me it happened to, so, yeah. Again, I really appreciate the service as far as the discs and drives go on both of these guys. I left the links to where I purchased both the disc and the drive for those of you who are fixing up your own Mac and need new parts down in the description of part 2, so go check that out. Support these people. It's definitely cool that there are people making discs like this, and yeah. So, with that said, we're gonna go ahead, I guess, and get back to the keyboard, which has been sitting in pieces for 2 days now, or 3 days actually. So with that, I began to clean up my workspace by moving the partially disassembled Macintosh out of the way, and replacing it with the keyboard, or the parts of the keyboard at least. Basically, I still have not cleaned off the dust and stuff from the board yet, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and spray it down, and as you can see here, I figured I'd show you one of my least favorite aspects of spring, as far as insects go. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and spray off the patio so that I can clean off any dirt and stuff that would get on the keyboard, and then I will go ahead and quickly spray down the keyboard, and that should be good. Alright, so after a few bit of interrogation from my brother wondering why I'm spraying electronics, I spray down the keyboard. Now, this should be, you might be wondering, like, why am I spraying down actual, like, the circuit board for the keyboard and the switches and stuff. Well, this is actually completely safe to do as long as it's unplugged. Now, I recommend you don't ever do something like this unless you are completely sure of what you're doing, because the last thing I need is a bunch of angry comments in my video about people who tried to do this and didn't know what they were doing, ended up shorting out their electronics. Now, one thing you've got to realize is that water actually doesn't hurt electronics unless it's turned on and able to short stuff out, or can corrode the traces. Now, none of those I'm concerned, because obviously I'm not going to be powering this on until it's completely dry. And second of all, it won't corrode because hopefully the water will be evaporated by the time that would start to happen. Which it should be. I'm probably going to blow this off with some compressed air as well, maybe. But yeah, basically, I'm just going to let this air dry for a few hours, and we'll come back to this. But the main reason I did this was just to get rid of all the dust and hair between the between the switches. You'll notice up here too, there's a lot of gunk on the PCB, but I'm not worried about that because that's not as visible when the keyboard's assembled. Also, it's very interesting how they have this little IC down here, this in a socket, which I'll probably take out to dry underneath there, but yeah, I'll just go ahead and let this air dry for a few hours. Next up, after letting the piece air dry for about 40 minutes, I went ahead and blasted out with the air compressor, and then I went ahead and put back in the little IC that I said I was going to take out in a few clips ago. Basically, I believe that's just the keyboard controller. Next, after that, I'll go ahead and place the keyboard back into its case, and then I'll put the back piece on and start screwing it up. Anyway, after that, I went ahead and started to put like the springs and supporters on for the keyboard. This was harder than I thought, and then I actually forgot to record actually putting the keys on, so sorry about that. Okay, I forgot to record it, unfortunately, but I was able to put all the keys back on the keyboard. I'm going to double check now and make sure that I didn't put anything in the wrong spot. I do have an image I took of it, but I'm going to have to view like the original image because it didn't print in very high quality, so yeah. Some good news though is that the new discs I ordered for the Macintosh just shipped since the other one apparently got damaged somehow. Now since by this point the machine was basically fully functional and I didn't want to have to wait till Friday to finish this video, I decided I'd just go ahead and assemble it up and show you what I've done to the machine in the last few weeks. I have to say though, it definitely looks a lot better than it did before. We'll go ahead and put down the keyboard and mouse for the machine. And here's what it looks like now. Now, things don't always go to plan when it comes to old computers like this Macintosh Plus, or just any aging piece of technology. However, I'd have to say, for the condition this was in before, we've definitely done a good job over the past 3 episodes. I've been working on this in real time for about a week and a half now, exactly a week and a half now, and I have to say I've definitely enjoyed the time I've spent working on this computer, and I do think we fully got it fixed. I do have a new boot disk coming since the boot disk that I ordered initially failed. I mean, these are old disks especially, These are double density discs, not high density discs, so these are even older. These are like the original 3.5 inch discs from what I'm aware of, but stuff happens. I probably screwed this up somehow. So anyway, I will be doing a overview of this machine. I ordered a new disc and I got my money back on this one, as well as various other pieces of software. I ordered a pack of old Mac software from the same guy. So hopefully that will be here by sometime this week, and I can start filming my next episode for this channel, which is going to be about just a general overview of the Macintosh Plus and some of the cool features that System 6 has on the Macintosh Plus. So anyway, I'd like to thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.